Yeah, absolutely. Well, another question that a lot of people are wanting us to ask, and obviously this is the Vanguard, so it has to be done. I mentioned earlier that it seemed like this whole independent left YouTube space used to be a lot more united, and that's definitely true. I've been watching you guys since like 2015, 2016, and I still remember back in the good old day. When Jimmy Dore was on TYT and everyone was happy and getting along and all that stuff. And I'm just wondering, is there any possibility, because some people are wondering, is there any possibility that you and Jimmy or anyone else could potentially bury the hatchet at some point and maybe reunite behind whether it's a candidate or just a movement in general, a force the vote style thing? The next time something like that happens, they could potentially unite lefty commentators. Are you opposed to kind of burying the hatchet and letting the past kind of die in favor of reuniting behind something in common?
I have absolutely nothing against Jimmy Dore. I have absolutely nothing against the Young Turks. I have absolutely nothing against any sort of faction on the left. I have disagreements with them, and we can have the conversations about the disagreements. But in terms of like, am I going to stand on principle if there's some area where we agree? Like, I will not work with you because you have other things. No, that's ridiculous. That's childish. We're adults, and I think that's the same mindset that I took to when I got dragged into the TYT Jimmy Dore feud. I took that approach, but everybody at the time, and I mean everybody, gave me shit for it. Whether it was my audience, whether it was the Young Turks themselves, whether it was Jimmy Dore himself, because I didn't want to even get involved. Everybody remembers how hard I was trying to stay out of that shit. I don't want to have anything to do with it. And so then I get dragged in, and I give my take on it, and people didn't like what I said because a lot of people in my audience were OG TYT fans because they were the OG in the game. And a lot of people were Jimmy Dore fans because he has very passionate fans. And so I went out there and, basically said the exact things that would piss off both camps, making me less popular, making my subs flee too, right? So I did something on principle where I took the approach of, look, I'll agree where we agree, I'll disagree where we disagree, and that ended up getting me in trouble. You know what I'm saying? But that same mindset that made me do that is the same mindset that leads me to the conclusion of I got nothing against these people. Look, they're the ones they hate me. I don't hate them. They hate me. I have disagreements with them, but, they hate me. They all do. Like, Cenk hates me. Anna hates me. Jimmy hates me. Oh, abso-fucking-lutely. Are you kidding me? Did you guys see the stuff that was even publicly, the stuff that was going on? Never mind what they were doing privately. I was getting text messages from them where it was totally unhinged stuff, and some of the stuff even spilled over publicly.
Or Jimmy?
Both of them. Jimmy, it was less private. It was more public. Yeah. Cenk, it was the opposite. It was more private. I mean, I saw you guys did a thing where like, oh, I muted Anna Kasparian. They're all muted. Anna's muted. Cenk's muted. Jimmy's muted. Look, I'm a grown ass man. I don't have time for this shit. Like, I'm here to cover the news, talk about the things I find interesting, and that's the end of it. Yeah. By mistake, to the extent I made any mistake in the first place, it was getting close enough to people in the business where I felt a personal loyalty to them. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, first of all, I don't know if you actually watched our video about you muting Anna, but just so you know, I defended that and said I also have some of our friends of the show muted on our Twitter, which sometimes gets revealed when we're looking at stuff.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, oh shit, oops, I didn't mean to show that. So yeah, that was just more of a fun kind of LOL.
Yeah. But I know you're not coming out against it, but even if you did, it's fine. It's no big deal. I mean, I've never blocked anybody in my history of being on Twitter, but I will mute the shit out of somebody if they're annoying me. That's also, I don't really read any stuff anyway. Like Anna, I follow, and so she would come up on my thing, and she would take these pot shots at me, these underhanded shots. And to this day, they still do it in videos. They think Cenk thinks, he doesn't say it because I think it would be too hard of a case to make, but he still thinks I'm part of like the fake left, right? Like he would call, he did the thing the other day, oh, Jimmy and Brianna Joy Gray and all these, they're all the Glenn fake left. And he throws me in that group. He throws Crystal in that group. He didn't say my name. I'm sure he thinks of me in that group as well. And so, look, I don't want to deal with that shit. I don't want to deal with it. I mean, they could think whatever they want about me, say whatever they want about me is totally fine. It's out of mind in my opinion. But if you're asking me, am I okay? If there's an area where I agree with Cenk and Jimmy, am I going to say, hey, credit? Absolutely. That's all I do is I keep it real no matter where the conclusion lands. And I guess the difference is, look, there are two competing values here. One of them is everybody in this space wants to be like, I'm the truth teller. I'm going to tell it like it is no matter what happens. And if that means pissing off my closest allies, so be it, because I'm going to die on this hill, right? That's one instinct everybody has. And there is something about that that's, principle that people gravitate towards, right? But at the same time, there's a competing value there, which is, wait a second, I believe in solidarity, which means giving my fellow, people in this same space, fellow lefties, the grace and the leeway to have areas where we agree to disagree, where I'm like, not going to slit your throat and never want to work with you again if you disagree with me on a certain thing, right? And that's also something that's commendable. And there's something that's principled about that too. But those things are at odds with each other, right? Like, you could either be the truth teller who tells it like it is and pisses off the people close to you if they piss you off, or you could be, no, I believe in solidarity, so I'm going to sort of let shit slide a little bit.
Well,
right?
I feel like you're the kind of guy that, and we try and embody this as well. I feel like there is kind of there's a middle of the road path, right? Like, you just said that you would work with Jimmy, you would work with Cenk. I would work with Jimmy, though he's pissed me off, fucking Lord knows. I would work with a lot of people that we used to have Spike Cohen on the show pretty semi-regularly. He was the VP with Joe Jorgensen for the Libertarian Party, and he was a fucking crazy person when it came to like regulation and economics. But we were talking a lot during the George Floyd era, right? And I would passionately criticize Spike. I'm sure he would call me like a crazy socialist, right? But on these areas of agreement, like, I think we would all be perfectly willing to, like, stand against police brutality with like libertarians or somebody that's, has far more disagreement with me and on an economic standpoint than somebody like Cenk Uygur or Anna Kasparian,
Yeah, no, and that's the exact point I was going to make too, which is, so then the thing that everybody has to try to do is balance those two competing values. You have to care deeply in solidarity and extend that olive branch. At the same time, also not backing off of your principles and your ideology and being a truth teller. You have to do both those things. And the way that you do it, I think the most effective way is to let everybody know, look, I got nothing against you. I got nothing against you whatsoever. If we disagree, fine, we disagree, and we can have that conversation. But ultimately, at the end of the day, am I angry at Cenk? You angry at Jimmy Dore when I lay my head down on my... Of course not. They're the ones who are angry at me. They don't like me because I dared to, say something that was very unpopular at the time, which I think, by the way, over time, people now look back and they go, oh, Kyle was actually being pretty reasonable. Yeah,
it really
exactly.
was. Yeah.
And at the time, I got dragged through the fucking coals at the time. I absolutely did. But I stand by every single goddamn word I said back then. Every word. And the other thing that people don't realize is, so the one area where we messed up is me and Crystal, Jimmy was supposed to come on the show and we didn't tell him, let's not do this. And then he reached out the day of like, hey, are we doing the thing? And we tried to nicely be like, look, it's not a good idea, etc. The reason why I didn't want to talk to him is because I would have had to ask questions where I know he would have hated it. I know he would have lashed out. And I know the fact because that guy Primo Radical talked to Jimmy and asked similar questions that I was going to ask. And Jimmy flipped the fuck out on him. Right. And so in a sense, I was trying to be like, hey, let's let this thing cool off. I don't want to get in the middle of it. And if anything, I'm sort of doing you a favor because if I ask the questions that I feel compelled to ask, I have a duty to ask, being in that I'm in, then you're going to fucking be pissed at me. And he did not realize that, like, this is what I'm doing. It's almost like a heads up type shit, So, and then, of course, the Young Turks, because I dared to give any credence to some of Jimmy's points that I was persona non grata over there. So, but look, either way, at the end of the day, like I said, nothing against the Young Turks. I disagree with them plenty. By the way, we can talk about that if you want. Jimmy, disagree with them plenty. We can talk about that. I got nothing against any of them. And I wish all of them well. And I hope that both of them, them at their best moments, I hope that's them in perpetuity forever. Because when I've seen Cenk go on some glorious rants, old school Cenk Uygur was a force to be reckoned with. And he was a big inspiration to me. Jimmy Dore, there are some Jimmy Dore rants that are historic in how amazing they are.
They're so good.
They're so good. And so I want to see more of their good stuff, and I wish them the best, and I hope that they can do that in perpetuity.
Yeah, well, I'm sure they're not, but I really honestly hope that they're watching or they hear you say that at some point, because I just it's always floored me how petty both sides were when it came to that thing. And not to just simp for you, Kyle, but I do think that you handled that in a remarkably kind of grown-up way, a reasonable way. You did, like you said, you didn't want to get dragged in the first place, but once you were brought to that point, you were just honest about how you felt. And obviously no one's perfect, but you just said what you believed. And the way that they both treated you, sending you fucking text messages, villainizing you on their shows over, what ultimately boiled down to a petty personal disagreement, not even anything substantive or policy related. It really did just show me that they both had a real strain of just pure narcissism, frankly, that I just don't see in you. So, shout out to you.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And but I assure you that within the course of this conversation, instead of looking at the overall message, they'll dive into specifics and nitpick it and use that as further reason to hate me and despise me and view me as the fake left or whatever. So